The animal puppets have always been my favorite. The animal puppets are always my favorite. I haven't been in love with that hyena. I'm a professional, and I get to lift the head up a little bit here and there. I cry at home. Remember, Mongi, you got to play the crocodile. When I was really, really young, I saw a handspring show, Tall Horse. I was overwhelmed. I thought that show was unbelievable. Particularly, there was one moment that shattered me, was when one character he had these beautiful long legs and he'd been walking around performing a scene and something happened and his legs went away from him. He goes, my legs! And he chases his legs across the stage. I remember looking at that and I said to myself, I'm going to do that. And so I started asking everybody, how do you get into a handspring show? How do you get in? They're like, handspring doesn't do auditions. You'll never get it. If you're not in already, they don't bring in new people. For 12 years, I waited for an audition. And then I showed up to audition for something else. And I ruined that audition. Came in, my reading was awful, wasn't working, really disappointed. And I walk out, my friend goes, oh, are you here for the handspring auditions? And I felt my entire soul drop out of me. And I said, where? Are they still happening? Is it over? He goes, yeah, they're waiting. I said, they're waiting for me? I went in there and they said, did you prepare? And I said, I didn't even know this was happening. So I haven't learned the lines. And they looked at me and go, you're too young for the role. I said, but I would just love to try anyway. He goes, have you done puppetry before? No. He knows nothing. Anyway, they said, well, we've got 10 minutes till lunch. We'll give you a try. So, sweating with a script and picking up that wooden puppet for the first time, I was like, Mike, it's so heavy. And I had some wonderful people that I've known over the years now, Jason and Gabrielle, were really patient with me, taught me a few things, and then I started and they liked it. And I got called in to meet William. Got called in to meet William. He met me and he liked me. And suddenly I became part of the Handspring family. So it wasn't through an agent. I wasn't prepared. I waited for 12 years. I'd never done puppets before. Walked into the audition and that began my journey. It's a unified thing to bring these creatures to life. And it's actually incredibly beautiful. Every time I come back into puppetry, just rediscovering the techniques of this style. It's very much a bunraku style, but I don't know, very Africanized, the importance of the breath, the importance of thought, and the simplicity, still using the bunraku sense of poise and image, but then bringing in the breath and the thoughts as a way to, I don't know, give it a modern flair, give it an African handspring flair. And of course, the fact that we do it together, two people trying to make something live every second. Let me tell you, it hurts. The muscles and everything, the control, but to bring it together, and two people breathing and moving together, sometimes three people, yeah, you have to love it. Doing any of the Kentridge handspring shows, it's actually an exhilarating experience because it is extremely sophisticated and deep. We're talking about, the puppets are incredibly beautiful, incredibly nuanced and poetic, but then by the combination of the visuals and the open-ended questions that the themes explore. So Wojciech on the high five will always be my favorite because I was Wojciech. So being able to tackle that depth of the character was amazing. And then each show sort of tackles the African experience in different directions. The idea of these European lenses on the African journey towards self, empowerment, freedom. It's very interesting. So Faustus is interesting in that exploration of the seduction of power and the con game. The question of like, when we Africans take over our land, our country, are we going to be different? Or are we going to find ourselves caught in the wheels that originally started it all? You know, Faustus makes a deal with everybody. He doesn't see skin color. I mean, not Faustus. Edited. Mephisto makes a deal with everybody. He doesn't see skin color. Right now, it's still early days because we are slowly discovering the depth and the nuance of this show. The animal puppets have always been my favorite. I think you can always get a key in to where the show is going by the animals. The hyena and the vulture. Really, really interesting puppets. But I'm looking forward to seeing where it all comes together and how it comes together. And I think when Laura comes in, we're going to have a very exciting time.
Were you manipulating animal puppets in the other productions?
Yes.
And this is the first production where you are not manipulating an animal.
Yes.
Are you
And
sorry about it?
I cry at home. Yes. I'm a professional. I smile and nod and go, good job. And then I go home and go, what happened? What happened? I mean, that hyena, I've been in love with that hyena for years. But I say to myself, remember, Mongi, you got to play the crocodile. Okay? That croc is special too. So, I mean, the animal puppets are always my favorite because they're the most challenging. They do the most interesting things. But I'm really quite enjoying the human characters I'm getting to play. Johnston, obviously, and Helen. And just giving them personality. I love that work. So it's going.
When you play Johnston, you actually almost manipulate the hyena. Like you touch hyena at least.
Yes, I get close, and I get to lift the head up a little bit here and there, so I can pretend like I did something.
Your head will have to be high looking at him, looking down at him from the eye.
Hold still. Hold still, and bite this truth's bitter pill. So we have one human, like, actor, Mephisto, and then almost all the other con characters are animals. And then all the characters that have been taken for a ride in one form or another are humanoid puppets. So there's an interesting sort of distinction being made. It's also that the con characters are symbols of eternal forces. I mean, Helen is another con character, but she is more of she's Helen of Troy. She's over 7,000 years old. She is this seduction of war, you know, the allure of leaving your morals and causing mayhem and chaos just for one glance at her, for one kiss at her. Very interesting sort of exploration of her. You know, the vulture dealing with fortune telling and spinning of lies and concoctions, you know. Gentlemen, come, don't leave me by, come here, I want to give you something, you know. And then you've got Hyena, who is, how do you explain the hyena? I mean, the hyena is a servant of Mephisto, so eating the scraps and doesn't want to eat the scraps anymore. Wants to be part of the new generation of cons, you know. And so we are witnessing someone trying to overtake their master. So it's and again, is there an eternal sort of energy about the hyena? These concepts that are given physical form, you know. It's very, very interesting. An animal puppet is not human, so it's already requiring to be extraordinary just to start talking or whatever it's going to be asked to do. You show the puppet thinking, but the thinking needs to relate to people, so it makes it accessible to all of us. And then with Handspring and William, each puppet actually represents something deeper about us, you know? So when I played the crocodile, for example, he wasn't just a crocodile, he was actually an accountant, a legal advisor, and he would swallow information, you know. He was ravenous for it. And so you use the nature of the creature to explore the theme of the topic. The hyena, in my mind, is a con man character. You know, like picking up the scraps and sneaking up behind people to see what's up, what's going on here, what's going on here, guys. You want to make a deal? You know, I wish I was playing him, but and so the hyena is exploring that space of temptation. You know, it's extending the Mephisto exploration, but going, it's not just the very top that are tempted by things, but people are all along the structure of society and the corrupted system. Everyone gets tempted. And so the hyena goes, I settle for scraps. You know, maybe I could hook you up with something. And I think that's fascinating. And so when the hyena starts playing into that, starts revealing itself to have these interesting qualities, they become fascinating. You know, they have to go about it differently than when a human would do it. I think that's really special. And then add to it, you know, Kentridge's genius at deepening the symbols that of the objects that he presents the audience. You can look at a thing over and over and find that you find more and more readings. So yeah, I think that's what makes those animal puppets really, really exciting. The vulture is a new one, so we're looking forward to seeing how that unlocks itself. A tourism company called Shearwater. What they specialize in is adventures all along the Vic Falls. So whitewater rafting, sunset cruise, seeing elephants, skydiving, bungee jumping, they do it all. And their name are Alan and Tony Roberts. And they sat down and they said, what's missing in this town? And they said, well, when it's dinner time, you can't go out. Everyone eats and has nothing to do. We need a show. And so they'd never done theater before, but they were going to take it on. And they put their money where their mouth is. They built a theater from scratch. It was a dump area. So, you know, it was just nothing was happening in this huge little backlot. And so they cleared it out and brought in an architect and built a theater. But while they were building the theater, they called me in. So they got contacts and they found out, we hear that you are a writer, director, and a designer. And I said, well, sure. I said, well, we want to make a show. You want to make a show? They go, yeah, we want to make a Broadway style show. I said, a Broadway style show? How many actors are you thinking? He goes, well, I mean, we want big dance numbers. We want da 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 da. I said, you're talking about 20 to 30 people on stage. They go, yeah, that sounds right. I said, do you know how expensive that is? And they said, don't worry about it. We want you to make the most entertaining African show about Africa. You know the Lion King? We want an African Lion King, except it can't be the Lion King. It has to be its own kind of show. We need a new concept, and it's gotta be big with dance numbers, lots of jokes. It's gotta be thrilling, surprising, and end with everyone jumping up and clapping and going, ah, we love it. And you know, people underestimate how difficult it is to make a show like, you know, The Lion King wasn't like whipped up. It's really quite hard to be entertaining consistently like that, to stay positive through the whole show, that the audience feels energized, and at the end feels moved by the morals of the story and has all these memories of like great scenes and their favorite characters, you know, to build a mythology for an audience. And so I went to Vic Falls and I stayed there for 7, 8 months. We built the theater while I wrote the script and made the set and costumes. It really I felt like a gypsy. Because, you know, we just get up and go and make. And then we go, we're going to Harare, we need to go and audition. And also, yeah, the performers, a lot of them had never been on a professional stage. So they had done amateur work. The dancers, we got them from a very prestigious dance company, Afikira, which was so grateful that they had that professional training. But for the most part, this was everyone's first time. So that was a shock to the system. And at first I said to Alan, don't you want to bring South Africans in? He goes, no, it's all Zimbabwean actors. So we had to start a school. So whilst we were making the show, we trained them at the same time. Taught them how to read scripts, how to prepare a character, everything. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Stressful beyond belief, but I was happy every day. There were no bureaucracies, no need for red tape. We need to get something, justify it, write it down on a piece of paper. We need to get X. Okay, go get it. I've never experienced such freedom before. And I mean, we had some, as I've said to someone, if it's all smooth sailing, it's probably a bad show. And it sounds weird to people who don't know this, but there's always trouble in making a show. As I said to Alan and Tony, shows don't like to get made. They fight you every step away. The puppet doesn't work. The costumes don't fit. Someone is quit. This, that, the other. And things happened. Terrible things. And I remember there were some nights where I'd come to my room and go, he's going to fire me tomorrow. But he never did. Alan never did. He kept faith. He was like, I understand. You said it to me at the beginning, Mongi. So I'm trusting you. Keep going. I said, why making you keep going? He goes, because I came to rehearsals, I watched a scene, and I laughed. And then I came another day, I watched a scene, and I thought that was a very cute couple. I can feel the show, so keep going. And yeah, we finally got that show on stage. And now there are 30 young people who have full-time employment. The show is just broken even. So now, Alan, after 2 years, a year of working and building, a year of building the audience, the show is making money. So now his investment has been covered, which I'm incredibly proud of, And yeah, now the show is starting to have a reach. People are becoming aware of it on a wider global scale. It's actually been compared that this is indeed a Broadway show. A number of people from New York, from major cities around the world who have watched the show have said, this is an incredible show. This isn't a local show. This is world class. So if you're in Victoria Falls and you want to have a great night, come see Simunye. You're going to love it. Trust me. It's a love story. And it's about trauma. It's about two brothers who were thrown out of their tribe, and the older brother creates a mini tribe around the younger brother of other men, other people who've been thrown out of their tribes, and he's formed a new tribe. But he has anger and pain in his heart, a bitterness for what was done to him, And so he's grown to a strength where he's a problem. But the younger brother is the sweetest soul who has been raised protected and doesn't know how to do what is necessary. And because of that, he refuses to do what is necessary for his tribe, and so he's kicked out. And that young brother is kicked out when he saves a baby elephant. And so it's about these two. The baby elephant had lost his tribe, the young man has lost his tribe. And their journey towards redemption. Like, what is it to come of age as a young man in Africa? But then it is coupled on the other side by this incredible tribe called the Marubas, who are one of the most biggest tribes who work the land, and so they are the fashionistas of the African continent. Beautiful dresses, everything, and they do celebrations, celebrating the harvest and so forth, but they have no strength. And so when the wolf moves in amongst them, he is able to cause havoc. And it's the story of these two tribes, these two different ways of thinking, traumas of the past, our decadence and love of life, and going, we need to marry these things and find a third way of being. It's about Africa rescuing itself from its own history and making the third way. Now the animals play a big role, especially the elephant, Ndlovu, who's one of our big stars in the show. One of the things that we were talking about is that animals have a place in Africa. In Africa, animals aren't animals. They're citizens of their continent. And particularly elephants are known as a tribe in and of themselves. You see, in Africa, a lot of Africans' names are actually connected to animal totems. So we have responsibilities to different animals. For example, it was profound for me to discover that they wanted to do a story which would be the elephant tribe because my totem is the elephant. So this was me doing the work of my brother tribe, the elephants. And the idea was that Ndlovu, these elephants that particularly in the area, we have Alan and Tony Roberts have a foundation called Elicru, in which they've literally collected elephants who come from traumatized backgrounds, so poachers or this, and formed a new tribe with them. But because they formed, half the tribe is humans, because elephants live as long as humans do. So these are families, and these particular individuals grow up with them. And so they're considered ambassadors. The human ambassador, the elephant ambassador, making the world better for human and elephants. And so we took that and put it into the story going, we want to explore that thing. These two who've suffered, who are looking for a new way. And so the elephant plays a role in bringing the awareness of the spiritual nature and awareness of the other tribes that people have ignored and thought of as just, animals just there. Where in fact they are living, they're thinking, they have whole lives they live, they can contribute, they can decide to help you or hinder you. They are conscious beings. They're just not your species. And so there's something really special about that storytelling that we are able to bring, and that it's the elephant who ultimately helps us understand of the third way, the third way of being on this planet.